I've been working with Matt a little, but I've been working in the realm of reconnecting for around 30 years already, but believe it or not, I've never given a talk about it at a conference. And so I work a lot behind the scenes, and I would much rather explain this to you there, outside on the grass or somewhere in the forest or on a kayak. I did, over the last 3 weekends, a very quick survey with a very short turnaround time. All the responses aren't in yet. I've heard yesterday and the day before people telling me about responses that they're sending, and I'm looking forward to them, so don't hold back. This is to gain some insights on the opportunities that we as SANParks could harness to integrate our nature connectedness in our workspace. And so I asked a lot of people if they wanted to participate, and the people that responded positively by sending me their email address, around 100 of them, got an email with the study and the survey details, and it was completely anonymous. And 40 of those people actually, after they've opened it, some never even bothered to open it, about 40 or just under 40 people responded. But I knew that because we knew that the response is normally about a third. So I aimed for that. And this is by no means a full study. This is merely for us to start looking in that direction to co-create some form of study coming from that in the future. So I also involved not just SANParks people. I purposefully split it about 50-50 between SANParks and outside people. And I aimed for as diverse a cultural group as I could possibly get, all walks of life. And the common element was, for all the people that I approached for this, is I wanted to work with or get insights from people that are working in a nature or an outdoor setting, whether they were a gardener or whether they were a guide or a manager of a MPA or a national park. So in my talk today, I'll be looking at some of the results from the survey, and I've divided it into discussing the SANParks vision, which includes the word reconnecting in it, looking at the society that we work with and breaking down to our own staff, our stakeholders and our clients, and then exploring the opportunities linked to that. So SANParks vision. SANParks has a world-class system of sustainable national parks, reconnecting and inspiring society. So my first question was, in the survey, how do people interpret the word reconnecting in this vision statement? And I got a variety of feedback from many different points of views, but what's interesting is the process that it started sort of plotting. And it wasn't just a one-size-fits-all response. So most people recognized in the word reconnecting something and that there was something lost. In other words, it was something that we had in the past. And most of the responses indicates that the reconnecting is with nature. And it's more than just our enjoyment of nature, but also realizing how we fit in nature and that we are nature ourselves. And then that would lead also for people to discover connection with themselves and reconnecting to our true selves through a deep and meaningful nature experience. So nature, as a reconnecting with nature, becomes then a vehicle for us to discover who we are and who we will want to become, or in essence who we are. And because we can then understand ourselves better, it's leading us with a connection or better connection to our society and different parts of society, and reconnecting different parts of society with each other, because we find ways of being more vulnerable in each other's spaces and be able to share, and then in that way reconnect with each other. And then ultimately it also reconnects us with national parks and understanding of the reasons why national parks exist. So this is not my wisdom, it all came out of the survey, the first question of the survey. So then we looked at the society and we broke it down into, let's first look at our own staff in SANParks. And then, as Matt previously spoke of, this part of the SANParks component was to look at the results from the surveys from the Spirit of the Wild work and what came out of that, which Matt briefly shared. If you wanted to have more details of that, we can share that with you. But there is also implications of that information that came out and how we can apply it as SANParks. So basically, on a personal level, people were reporting self-development and a sense of well-being and connection. At a professional level, a team building with their colleagues. Skills development, especially when there's guides involved and people also talking about their own communication skills that were important. And in these days, I think communication skills is something we all need everywhere in society. And then, of course, with for an organization like SANParks, the benefits in there is that we would then have healthy, motivated, connected staff, which can then engage with our stakeholders in a more sincere way, and also be able to give an authentic conservation message to our visitors and to what we want to promote around conservation. One of the main things that came out of those surveys with the SANParks staffs at the Spirit of the Wild was an expressed need for more of the same, more work like this when we're back, not necessarily going back to Spirit of the Wild, but where we are working in the conservation landscape. And someone was mentioning right in the beginning that we should possibly see that as one of the benefits, you did, as the benefits of working for a conservation agency, when we be able to spend time in nature, and yet as conservationists we often don't. It's sometimes another job when we're not having the privy of climbing up a tree and sitting to watch bees. We are sitting behind computers in Zoom meetings. So to do more of that, it came out. And actually when we then did a follow-up project with some of our colleagues, we got a group of women together for Women's Day, and how much that was enjoyed in the conversations afterwards, again saying we would love to have this on a more regular basis, especially for women and the need. And it was interesting, the gender thing coming into that as well. And so I'm hoping to see more of that happening, and I'm certainly going to try and get it going with some of my colleagues that I'm close to. And then last but not least, with this research, we also noted that there's definite opportunity for more exploration of this and also for further research. So this brings me to the gist of the two big questions in the survey, and this is to see how these respondents felt about how we can better include reconnecting in our programs with our stakeholders. And a lot came out of that, and this is not my words, this is mostly just in the way that it was in the different survey responses. And I tried not to, I sometimes put two together that were very similar, but I tried to stick to more or less the wording used in the survey responses. And so I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of them are really important. One of the things that came out around public participation processes is how we need to invoke connection and relevance through subjective site visits. And one of our colleagues, Marietta Aland, she took a group of people through one of those river processes to try and get neighboring landowners to work with us around alien vegetation clearing and all sorts of catchment area issues. And she actually took them on a kloofing exercise. I wasn't brave enough to go at the time, but yeah, so you can actually give nature a voice also in your public participation processes and see nature as one of your participants. And then to actually try and get people, when they're together, to have open-hearted communication and to look at a larger vision of well-being together with the entity that we are taking decision on. But then also just referring back to the processes of public participation, being able to be bridge-building exercises between different parts of society, because different groups, social groupings and society groupings have different opinions, opposing opinions often, and these public participation processes might open up some conflict, but it's brilliant opportunities to build bridges in society and to make people understand each other's different perspectives. And then opportunities to experience Indigenous people's worldviews and build from their rich connections with nature, the value of Indigenous knowledge systems. We heard a lot about that in our foregoing talks. So then also ongoing participation and how important that is, to give feedback after you've had a public participation process and also keep people up to date with inside information. They want to stay connected when that's there. And if you just drop them as a participant, then it's like a friend that's been dropped or someone that's close to you that you're now avoiding. And then in terms of socioeconomic development opportunities, local community engagement, an iterative process for operational management, especially where it impacts people's livelihoods. It's very important. Opportunities to experience Indigenous people's worldviews, again, with regards to natural resources, often very important. It's not just often about using something, it's also about the why and why it's important to people to be able to have access to that resource. And then co-learning initiatives. We heard some from Pumla about co-learning opportunities and how much there is, and for us to actually try, we're at the last times of moments where we can harness some of this information. It's almost like we're losing it by the day, and it's not just species dying out, it's also those kinds of connections with nature that is dying out if we don't capture them in our processes. So I'm not going to go into more detail about this, but I would like to get to the clients bit, and I'll skip through this very quickly. There's a lot of information from these that I hope that we'll be able to capitalize on going forward in SANParks, but it's also around our visitor experiences and our clients and how we can create better opportunities for them. Matt spoke to a lot of that in connection, and really for us to be able to facilitate that. On opportunities to allow tourists to really connect with nature in places that it's safe. And you'd like this last one here on the left bottom, to create opportunities for realistic experiences in nature. I don't know if you'd like to forage for your food, but those and so on. I can take you on a foraging trip if you like. But it's also not to have just sanitized opportunities for tourists, but also to have more deeper level engagement. And then definitely a range of self-guided and guided experiences going forward. And one of the things that came out a lot is that people expected it to be facilitated in some way, and that they're looking for engagement with our SANParks staff and engaging with them about their stories and their connection to the environment. It's almost like a little bit of a hero worshipping thing. If you're a ranger in the veld, the tourists want to link with you because they feel that you can impart some of that connection that you have in the process to them. And again, ongoing engagement with updated news afterwards. And then, so in terms of product designs, obviously there's all sorts of different visitor needs that need to be taken into consideration, different expectations, ways to connect different budgets, physical abilities, and so on that you need to take into consideration in your product design. Definitely to design and encourage slowing down, as Matt referred to. And for quiet spaces, maybe zone for quiet spaces, and dark nights. We're so used to having light all the time. And then for remote areas and biophilic design and back to basics accommodation, this probably speaks more to people that really want to go back to basics because their lives are so busy and so full of things that they wanted to reconnect on a deeper level. And it's up to the individual to him or herself to connect, but SANParks can create the conducive environment to do this. And then niche markets, I will not go into that now in detail, but there's all sorts of niche markets that were identified in the study, specific groups that would benefit. We've heard from Matt about the green referrals, and there's a whole market for SANParks maybe to tap into that we're not tapping into, and how important it is to have specialist guides for those kinds of activities. And also to take parks to people, to have green open spaces, urban spaces, where we can engage with nature, not just inside the park. It's important for us to make sure that people understand nature isn't somewhere you go to. Nature is in you, and you are in nature wherever you are. What next? So the conclusion here is that there's definite need for further exploration of opportunities to integrate nature connectedness in our programs in SANParks. There's a great potential for co-designed studies, and also for low-hanging fruits, for things that we already can just adapt in a small way, and we can already then include nature connectedness in that. And then definitely some pilot programs and products that we can identify. And then I'd like to leave you with this. This was out of the survey. I originally had a quote from someone else in here, and then I thought, let me include this. By reconnecting people with the wider web of life, they consciously or unconsciously come to remember connection with themselves and other people. Reconnection in this sense means remembering the connections that have always been there, that we exist only as a set of relationships. Thank you.